At the housewarming, my parents brought us new appliances, a dishwasher, an oven, a microwave. My husband immediately called his mother. "Mom, tomorrow the movers will bring all of this to you." My father took the phone out of his hand and said one sentence. My mother-in-law screeched so loudly it was audible without speaker mode. "Hello, dear listeners, I am happy to welcome you on my channel. I present to you a new interesting story. Enjoy listening." Isabella stood in the middle of the empty room, unable to believe it had finally happened. The keys to her own apartment lay in her palm, still warm from the realtor's touch. Ordinary metal keys on a simple ring felt more precious than any jewelry. "So, hostess?" Maximiliano wrapped an arm around her shoulders and kissed the top of her head. "Now it's ours, completely ours." She nodded, unable to say a word. 3 years, 3 long years they had saved every penny, skipped vacations, stopped going to cafes, didn't buy new clothes. Isabella remembered counting loose change before going to the store, choosing the cheapest groceries, mending jeans instead of buying new ones. She remembered how Maximiliano took extra shifts, came home pale from exhaustion, and collapsed on the couch without even taking off his clothes. And here was the result: a 1-bedroom apartment on the 4th floor, 32 square meters, according to the paperwork. Bare walls with peeling wallpaper, old linoleum on the floor, a kitchen the size of a closet, but it was theirs. Not rented, not borrowed from parents, not temporary. Their own home. "The windows face south," Isabella said, stepping to the windowsill. "It'll be bright. Nice." "Yeah," Maximiliano agreed. "And the neighbors seem quiet," the concierge said. He was already pacing the room with purpose, imagining where to put everything. Isabella watched him and smiled. There he was, her husband. An ordinary guy, a manager at a construction firm, not overly ambitious but reliable, or so she thought. In that moment, standing in the empty apartment, she was sure they could handle anything together. Her phone chimed, a message from her mother. "We're on the way, we'll be there in about 20 minutes. "Mom and Dad are coming," Isabella said. "They said they're bringing a surprise." "You have good parents," Maximiliano responded without turning his head. "Not like my mother. She's still sulking." Isabella pressed her lips together. Esperanza, her mother-in-law, had indeed taken offense 2 months ago when she heard about the purchase. She refused to answer the phone for a week, and when she finally deigned to pick up, she spoke in a hurt tone. "Why did you need this? I told you, I have a 2-bedroom apartment, and after I'm gone it will be yours anyway. You could have rented for now, saved money for old age instead of taking a mortgage. Now you'll be paying the bank for 20 years. Isabella stayed silent then. She knew Esperanza had always been practical, even excessively so. During their first meeting, the mother-in-law looked Isabella up and down, asked where she worked, how much she earned, whether she had a degree. Like a job interview. Later, she seemed to approve. "Well, not a model, of course, but looks like she's a good homemaker. And not poor, judging by everything. Her parents will help, right?" Isabella had only nodded, though something tightened inside. She was used to warmth in her own family, where no one judged people by financial status or measured a daughter-in-law by her salary. Her father, Octavio, always said the main thing was that a person had integrity. Everything else would work out. He owned a small business selling home appliances, 2 stores in residential neighborhoods. Nothing big, but stable. Her mother, Clementina, worked as an accountant at a medical center. They lived comfortably, without excess, but without need. Esperanza, however, counted every penny, more precisely, every someone else's penny. She spent her own freely. On new fur coats, weekends at the country house, renovations in the 2-bedroom apartment she planned to leave to her son. But when it came to helping the young couple, she turned into a miser. "You should manage on your own. I lived in a dorm at your age and survived just fine." Isabella shook her head, pushing away dark thoughts. Today wasn't the day for that. Today was a celebration. The doorbell rang exactly 18 minutes later. Maximiliano opened it, and Isabella's parents appeared. Octavio, a solid man in his 50s with a calm, steady gaze, and a jacket and jeans, and Clementina, a short, plump woman with a kind face and a constant smile. Octavio jingled the car keys in his hand. Well, kids, congratulations. He hugged his daughter tightly, then shook Maximiliano's hand. Homeowners now. That's serious business, you know? We know, Octavio, Maximiliano nodded. Thank you for helping with the down payment. Oh, come on. She's my daughter. Octavio waved it off. All right, I brought something. Clementina, tell them. Isabella's mother beamed. Sweetheart, we decided to give you a gift. Dad arranged everything through work, got it at wholesale prices, and we bought you appliances, a dishwasher, a built-in oven, and a microwave. All new, in boxes, with warranty. A lump rose in Isabella's throat. Mom, Dad, really, that's expensive, you shouldn't have. We should, her father interrupted. You can't run a kitchen without appliances, you know that. And I have connections, got it cheaper than the store. So don't worry, we wanted to make you happy. Octavio stepped into the hallway and called out to someone. In a minute, 3 large boxes were carried into the apartment, each with familiar brand logos. Isabella recognized the dishwasher model she had bookmarked online for later, for some indefinite someday. Dad, how can we ever repay you? She hugged him. Thank you. I honestly didn't expect this. It's fine, honey, Octavio patted her on the back. The main thing is that you live well. We'll install everything, no problem. I'll call a technician in a few days. Maximiliano stood beside the boxes, and Isabella suddenly realized he wasn't sharing her joy. He smiled politely, nodded, thanked his father-in-law, but there was a strange glint in his eyes, nervous, almost feverish, as if his mind was racing with some idea. Are you okay? Isabella asked. Yeah, great, he muttered, not looking up. Just got a message. She knelt by the boxes and ran her hand over the cardboard. A dishwasher, she had dreamed about it. An oven, she loved baking, and the old rental stove always ruined everything. A microwave, small thing, but life-changing. Her parents had always been generous, not in a showy way, not to impress anyone, but simply out of genuine kindness. Isabella knew they had been saving that money for their own apartment renovation, yet they decided to help their children instead. And now, looking at the boxes, she felt gratitude mixed with guilt. They had already paid the down payment on the mortgage, and now this, appliances too. Listen, I'm going to make a call, Maximiliano suddenly said. His voice sounded tense, but at the same time excited, almost thrilled. To whom? Isabella turned. To my mom. He was already dialing, not even looking at his wife. We should tell her we moved in, otherwise she'll get offended. Isabella opened her mouth to say that Esperanza already knew. They had called her yesterday, but Maximiliano had already lifted the phone to his ear. His face stretched into a smile that was too wide, too eager to please. And that was when Isabella understood something was wrong. She did not know what exactly, but a cold knot tightened inside her chest. Intuition, the kind women sometimes call a sixth sense, told her something bad was about to happen. Very bad. Maximiliano shifted nervously from foot to foot while waiting for an answer. He held the phone like it was a lifeline. And Isabella stood in the middle of the empty apartment, surrounded by boxes with new appliances, and suddenly felt the joy of this day draining away, leaving behind a heavy, anxious emptiness. Esperanza picked up after the third ring. Isabella could not hear her voice, but from the way her husband's expression changed, she knew his mother had answered. Hi, Mom. Maximiliano spoke in that special tone children use when they want to please their parents, sugary, slightly fawning. Isabella hated that tone, though she had never said so aloud. How are you? How are you feeling? He listened, nodding, although no one on the other end could see him. Yes, Mom, we're already here. We got the keys, signed everything. The apartment's small, of course, but it's fine, it'll be enough for now. For now. Isabella clenched her teeth, as if they were planning to move again soon. 20 years of mortgage payments was not for now. Listen, Mom, I have news. Maximiliano turned toward the boxes, his eyes lighting up. My father-in-law brought us a bunch of appliances. Can you imagine? A dishwasher, a built-in oven, and a microwave. All brand new, still in boxes, with warranty. Expensive models too, I recognized the brands. Isabella slowly straightened. Something inside her lurched. She stared at her husband, unable to look away. It felt like watching a play where she already knew the ending but still couldn't believe it would really happen. Yeah, Maximiliano continued, pacing around the room. But you understand, Mom, we don't need all this right now. Not at all. We just moved in, we have no money at all, mortgage, renovation ahead, we still need furniture, we barely have anything. We'd be happier with some old second-hand stuff for now, and here's all this expensive equipment. And it all needs installing, and installation costs money, and it eats electricity. A chill ran down Isabella's spine. She stepped forward, wanting to call out to him, but her voice stuck in her throat. Maximiliano didn't look at her. He was completely absorbed in the conversation. And your oven in the country house just broke, remember? His voice grew livelier. You complained your pies wouldn't bake properly, that the temperature wouldn't hold. And your microwave is ancient. You said yourself it sometimes sparks. Dangerous, right? Isabella moved closer. Now she was only 2 steps away, but still he didn't notice her, or pretended not to. So I thought, Mom. Maximiliano paused, and in that pause there was so much smugness that Isabella felt sick. Why let good things go to waste? We really can't use this stuff right now, and you could. You're spending the whole summer at the country house, right? Perfect. He fell silent to listen. Judging by how his face relaxed into a pleased smile, Esperanza approved. Of course, Mom, I knew you'd understand. He laughed, short and nervous. So, here's what we'll do. Tomorrow the movers will take everything to you. I'll call the guys from work, they'll bring it over for like $30. Just make sure you're home, okay? Isabella froze. Blood drained from her face, her fingers went cold. She stared at her husband, unable to believe it. Didn't want to believe it. It felt like a nightmare. A stupid, cruel dream. Any second she would wake up and this would all be different. But Maximiliano kept going. Yes, Mom, everything's new. And boxes, warranty papers inside, receipts too. Everything's legal, they got it wholesale. So good for you, you'll get quality appliances. He lowered his voice like he was sharing a secret. You're my mom, who else would I help? Of course you come first. Isabella will understand. She's a smart girl, she always understands everything. A smart girl. Isabella clenched her fists. Her nails dug into her palms, but she felt nothing. Her whole being was focused on what was happening, on these words, on this betrayal unfolding before her eyes. Yes, Mom, no worries, I'll arrange everything. Movers will be here in the morning, they'll pick it all up, and by lunch you'll have everything already. We'll plug the oven in right away so you can use it. He laughed again. Come on, Mom, don't thank me. It's nothing. I'll always help you, you know that. Isabella took another step. Now she stood right in front of him. Maximiliano finally noticed her gaze and hesitated briefly, then turned away again, pretending to be focused on the conversation. Okay, Mom, I'll call the movers and call you back, okay? Yes, of course. Love you. Bye. He lowered the phone and looked at his wife. His face tried to look casual, but his eyes darted nervously. What? He asked, shrugging. Why are you looking at me like that? Isabella stayed silent. She didn't know what to say. Words were stuck deep inside. Only cold, heavy rage rose instead. I just called my mom, Maximiliano continued defensively. Told her we moved. She's happy for us. You told her you would give her the appliances, Isabella said. Her voice was calm, flat. The appliances my parents brought. As a gift. To us. Well, yeah. Maximiliano took a step back. Look, let's talk calmly. I just thought. You thought. Isabella shook her head slowly. You thought you could take a gift my parents gave us and give it to your mother without asking me, without even talking to me. ISA, come on. He tried to take her hand, but she pulled away. We don't need this equipment right now. Really. We have no money. We haven't even bought furniture yet. No fridge, no washing machine. Why do we need a dishwasher? It's a luxury, don't you see? And my mom really did break her oven. She can't cook properly. Your mother can buy herself a new oven, Isabella said coldly. She has retirement income, savings. She bought an expensive fur coat 2 months ago. Did you forget? Well, what does a fur coat have to do with this? Maximiliano threw up his hands. That's different. Of course it's different. Isabella felt something hot and sharp boil inside her. When she spends money on herself, it's fine. When we buy an apartment, we're wasteful. When my parents give us appliances, you immediately decide to give them to your mother, right? Stop yelling. Maximiliano raised his voice. I wanted to do what's best. My mom lives alone. It's hard for her. She relied on me her whole life. And your parents are rich. They have a business. They can buy more. My parents are not rich. Isabella stepped toward him, making him instinctively back away. My father has 2 stores, not an oil empire. They saved that money for renovations but chose to help us. Understand? Help us, not your mother. Listen, I've already promised, Maximiliano muttered, looking away. It'd be awkward to back out now. Mom will get upset. And I'm not supposed to be upset? Isabella felt tears rising to her throat but forced herself to keep it together. And my parents won't be upset? They put in the effort, chose everything, brought it here, were happy for us, and 10 minutes after they left you decided to give it all away. Did you even think for a second about how I feel? Oh, come on. He tried to smile, but it came out crooked and unconvincing. You're smart, you'll understand. We're young, we'll be able to buy everything later. And Mom is old, she needs help. A smart girl, Isabella repeated, steel in her voice. That's exactly what you said on the phone. Isabella will understand, she's a smart girl. Did I hear that right? Maximiliano kept silent. He stood by the window with his hands in his pockets, staring at the floor. His posture radiated stubbornness and resentment. Always the same. When he was called out for being wrong, he got offended. Like a child. Isabella walked over to the boxes, sat on the floor beside them, and hugged her knees. Everything inside her was trembling. She thought of her father, who had negotiated with suppliers, squeezed out discounts, arranged delivery. Of her mother, who beamed with happiness imagining her daughter using the new appliances. Of how she herself had dreamed of a dishwasher, read online reviews, calculated when she could finally afford such a purchase, and how Maximiliano in 10 minutes decided to give it all away, without asking, without even thinking. You know what's worst, she said quietly, isn't that you want to give the appliances away. It's that you don't consider me at all. I'm nobody to you, my opinion doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what your mother says. That's not true, Maximiliano mumbled. It is true. Isabella lifted her eyes to him. For 3 years I saved money with you. 3 years I scrimped on everything. I gave up things, vacations, meeting friends, because every penny went toward the apartment. Your mother never once offered to help. Not once. But now that my parents gave us a gift, you immediately decided it should go to her. That's enough. Maximiliano turned toward her, irritation written on his face. Why are you nagging me? I already said I wanted what's best. Mom needs help, and we have a chance to help her. What does it matter whose appliances they are? It stays in the family anyway. In the family, Isabella echoed. So your mother is family, and my parents aren't? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Maximiliano didn't answer. He stared at his phone again, and Isabella realized he was already mentally calling the movers, planning how to organize everything tomorrow morning. For him, the conversation was over. He had made a decision, and everything else was just a formality. She wanted to get up, go to him, hit him, scream, pour out all the fury boiling inside, but instead she stayed sitting on the floor with her back against the wall. Thoughts swarmed in her head, each one more painful than the last. How had she not seen it before, not noticed that Maximiliano always put his mother first, that any wish of hers was law for him while his wife's opinion was nothing but noise? Esperanza called every day, sometimes twice. She asked what they ate, where they went, how much they spent. She made remarks, gave advice no one asked for, and Maximiliano always listened, nodded, agreed. And when Isabella tried to object, he would say, "She's my mom, just ignore it. She worries about us." Worries. As if worrying gives the right to meddle in someone else's life and dispose of someone else's things. The apartment door creaked open. Isabella flinched and turned around. Her father, Octavio, stood in the doorway with a large bag in his hands. His face was calm, but his eyes swept the room, pausing on his daughter sitting on the floor and then on Maximiliano, who stood by the window with the phone in his hand. "We're back," her father said. His voice was even, though Isabella caught a note of alertness. "We got the cake and champagne. Clementina will be up in a minute. She forgot the napkins in the car." Maximiliano spun around. For a second, something like guilt flickered across his face, but he quickly composed himself and forced a smile. "Octavio, great," he said, stepping forward. "Let's set the table and celebrate properly." Her father didn't answer. He set the bag on the windowsill and slowly, unhurriedly, walked over to his daughter, crouched down beside her. "Isa, what happened?" he asked quietly. She looked up at him. Tears stood in her eyes, barely held back. Octavio could read people. One look was enough for him to understand something had gone very, very wrong. "Dad," Isabella began, but her voice faltered. Maximiliano shifted nervously from foot to foot. "Octavio, everything's fine, really. We were just discussing how to install the appliances. I mean, when to call a technician." Her father didn't take his eyes off his daughter. "Isa," he repeated, "tell me." And Isabella couldn't hold it in anymore. The words poured out on their own, jumbled and bitter. "He called his mother and said he would give her all the appliances. Tomorrow the movers will pick them up. He didn't even ask me, he just decided on his own." The silence that fell over the room was deafening. Octavio slowly straightened up and turned to his son-in-law. His face remained calm, but his gaze grew heavy and piercing. "Maximiliano," he said, "is that true?" Maximiliano swallowed. He tried to smile, but it came out pathetic. "Well, basically, yes. But you misunderstood. I just wanted to help my mom. Her oven broke, and we don't have time to deal with this right now. We just moved in. I thought it would be better for everyone." "For everyone," Octavio repeated. His voice was level, but there was ice in every word. "So the appliances I bought for my daughter should go to your mother because that's better for everyone?" "Well, not exactly." Maximiliano backed away. Isabella's father took a step forward. He didn't raise his voice or gesture, but there was such force in his movements that Maximiliano instinctively pressed his back to the wall. "Maximiliano, I've worked with people my whole life," Octavio said. "I know what gratitude is, and I know what respect is. What you just did is neither gratitude nor respect. It's sheer nerve, plain, naked insolence." "Octavio, I didn't mean." "Shut up," her father cut him off. "It isn't your turn to speak." Maximiliano went pale. The phone was still in his hand. He gripped it so hard his knuckles turned white. Octavio looked at his daughter, then back at his son-in-law. There was so much contempt in his eyes that Isabella felt something inside her snap. "So you already called your mother," her father said evenly. "Promised that tomorrow the movers would bring everything over. And she agreed. Of course. Free appliances, who would say no?" Maximiliano stayed silent. The phone in his hand suddenly buzzed. The screen lit up with one word, "Mom." He looked at the phone, then at his father-in-law, and confusion twisted his face. Octavio held out his hand. "Give it here," he said. "What?" Maximiliano stared at him. "I said give me the phone." Maximiliano tried to protest, but Octavio stepped forward, and the younger man, driven by some ancient instinct, handed him the phone. Octavio took it and pressed the answer button. "Esperanza?" he said, voice flat and cold, and Isabella understood something very important was about to happen. Esperanza clearly had not expected a different voice. There was a pause, then a displeased. "Who is this? Where is Maximiliano?" "This is Octavio, Isabella's father." He spoke like he was reading out a sentence, calm, measured, each word landing like a hammer. "I want to warn you. The appliances are registered to my daughter, all receipts in her name. If even one mover comes to this apartment tomorrow without her written permission, I will file a police report for attempted theft with unlawful entry, and I will personally sue you for soliciting the theft of property. I hope your pension is enough to pay a lawyer." The screech Esperanza let out was loud enough to hear without speaker mode. Sharp, furious. Isabella flinched on the floor. Maximiliano went even paler, if that was possible. How dare you? Esperanza's voice shook with rage, every word audible in the room even without speaker mode. He is my son. He offered it himself. I didn't steal anything. Your son offered you property that is not his, Octavio cut in. Property belonging to my daughter. You agreed to take it knowing the gift was not for you. That is called accessory to theft. Consult any lawyer if you don't believe me. You, Esperanza sputtered. I raised my son alone. My whole life. And he can't help me? My oven broke. I cannot afford a new one on my pension. You had enough for that fur coat, Octavio said icily. So you should have enough for an oven. Understood. What does the fur coat have to do with it? That is different. Of course it is different. Octavio's calm tone stung more than shouting ever could. When you spend money on yourself, it is justified. When the young buy a home, they are wasteful. When I gift my daughter appliances, you believe you are entitled to them. Flawless logic. You are being rude, Esperanza snapped. I will file a complaint. Feel free, Octavio said. But note this, if a single moving truck shows up here tomorrow morning, I will do exactly what I said. And trust me, I have the contacts and means to see it through. Receipts, warranties, witnesses. Everything is ready. And you will have problems. Serious ones. You. Goodbye, Esperanza. He pressed the red button and placed the phone on the windowsill. Silence filled the room, thick enough to touch. Maximiliano stood against the wall, lips trembling. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Oh, Octavio, he finally stammered. I didn't mean this is just a misunderstanding. Only what? Octavio turned to him. His face was calm, but the contempt in his eyes made Maximiliano shrink back. Only decided you could dispose of someone else's property? Only thought your mother mattered more than your wife? Only didn't bother to ask permission? I wanted to do the right thing, Maximiliano muttered, voice pitiful, almost childlike. She's alone. Her oven really broke. I thought we could help her and buy new things later. Later we will buy, Octavio repeated. Do you have any idea how much this equipment costs? No, you don't, because you don't care. The only thing that matters to you is pleasing your mother, no matter the cost. That's not true. That is exactly true. Octavio paused. The silence tightened further. My daughter saved for 3 years. 3 years. She refused clothes, vacations, counted every penny. For this apartment. For your life together. And in 10 minutes you tried to give away her gift. Not yours. Hers. Maximiliano lowered his head. Shoulders slumped. Isabella watched him and felt bitterness rise in her chest. This was her husband. The man she lived with for 3 years. The one who promised to be there in joy and sorrow. And who betrayed her on the first day in their new home. I didn't mean to hurt her, he whispered. I really didn't. I just thought it was the right thing. Right for who? Octavio's voice sharpened. For your mother? For yourself? What about Isabella? Maximiliano had no answer. Octavio turned to his daughter. He helped her up, held her close. Isabella leaned into him, and finally let herself soften. Tears streamed silently, bitter and hot. It will be all right, sweetheart, her father murmured. It will be all right. Dad, I don't know what to do, she whispered. I really don't. We will sort it out. He stroked her head, then looked at Maximiliano. And you, call your mother. Tell her the appliances stay here, and that she should stop making plans for things that are not hers. She will be upset, Maximiliano mumbled. She'll be hurt. Let her be, Octavio said firmly. Maybe then she will understand she cannot take what is not hers. Maximiliano picked up the phone. His hands trembled. He looked at the screen, at his mother's name, and a storm of emotions crossed his face. Fear, guilt, resentment, confusion. He dialed and put the phone to his ear. Esperanza answered immediately, still screaming with rage, practically choking on it. Maximiliano, did you hear what your father-in-law said to me? Did you hear how he dared threaten me? Police, lawsuits, I will sue him myself. For slander, for insulting my dignity. Mom, calm down, Maximiliano said softly. Please. How can I calm down? He called me a thief. Me? I worked my whole life honestly, never took a penny from anyone. Mom, the appliances will stay here, Maximiliano said, staring at the floor. We won't be sending them to you. What do you mean you won't? You offered them to me yourself. I know, but circumstances have changed. What circumstances? Esperanza screeched again, and Isabella winced at the sound. Your wife poisoned your mind. I knew it. She has always been greedy. Always. She doesn't want to share with family. Octavio stepped forward and took the phone from Maximiliano's hand. This time, the son-in-law did not even resist. Esperanza, Isabella's father said coldly, almost indifferently, I will repeat this one last time. The appliances belong to my daughter. If you need an oven, go buy one. You have money, I know that. You have enough for fur coats, so you have enough for appliances. And stop calling my daughter greedy. The greedy one here is you, down to the last bone. He hung up again. Simply pressed the button and ended the call. Maximiliano stood pale, beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. She will never speak to me again, he croaked. Do you understand? Never. She will hate me. Then she will hate you, Octavio replied. You will live. But she is my mother. And she is my daughter, he nodded toward Isabella, whom you betrayed. On the very first day in your new apartment, less than an hour passed, and you were already giving away her property. Without permission, without respect, without a shred of conscience. I didn't betray, Maximiliano began, but stopped when he met his father-in-law's heavy stare. You did betray her, Octavio said. That is exactly what you did. And now my daughter knows what you are worth. The door opened slightly, and Clementina, Isabella's mother, walked in. She held a bag with napkins and plastic cups. She smiled brightly, but the smile vanished the moment she saw everyone's faces. What happened? She asked, looking from her husband to her daughter, then to Maximiliano. I'll explain later, Octavio said shortly. Not now. Clementina walked to Isabella and hugged her. She asked nothing, just wrapped her arms around her tightly. Isabella buried her face in her mother's shoulder and felt tears rise again. Sweetheart, what happened? Her mother whispered, stroking her hair. Later, Mom, Isabella murmured. I'll tell you later. Maximiliano stood aside, confusion written all over his face. He clearly did not understand what he had done wrong. He had tried to do a good thing, to help his mother. Why had everyone turned against him? Why did no one understand? There was nothing to understand. He had given away someone else's property without asking. He had put his mother's interests above his wife's. He had betrayed her trust, and there was no excuse for it. Octavio took out his phone and dialed a number. Alejandro? Hey, remember you mentioned you had a good technician who installs appliances? Give me his contact. Need him urgently. Yes, today. No, tomorrow won't do, today. Great, waiting. He hung up and looked at his daughter. The technician will be here in an hour. We'll install everything today, so there are no questions tomorrow. Dad, maybe we don't have to rush, Isabella started, but her father shook his head. We do. Everything must be installed and connected, so no one gets the bright idea to take anything tomorrow. Maximiliano twitched, wanting to say something, but stayed silent. He knew any words now would only make it worse. His father-in-law looked at him with such contempt that the only thing left was to stand and keep quiet. Meanwhile, Clementina unpacked the cake and set it on the windowsill. Champagne, napkins, cups, everything they had bought for the housewarming. But there would be no celebration. The air was thick and tense. Maybe we can still celebrate, Clementina suggested softly. It is a housewarming after all. We will, Octavio nodded. We will celebrate, after the appliances are installed. Isabella moved to the window. She looked out at the street, at the houses and the people walking by. Ordinary people with their own problems. Somewhere, someone else was celebrating a housewarming today. Someone was happy, hugging loved ones, making plans. And her day had gone wrong from the very start. She thought about Maximiliano, about who she believed he was. 3 years together. 3 years believing he was reliable, kind, caring. But all along he had been a mama's boy, unable to make a decision without her approval, someone who would always choose his mother over his wife, someone who would betray her without even realizing he was betraying. "ISA," Maximiliano said quietly. He came closer, stood beside her. "I'm sorry. I didn't think." "Really?" She did not answer. She just stared out the window. "I'll do better," he said. "I promise. I won't do this again." "You promise?" Isabella echoed, voice flat. "Like you promised we would live as a family? Like you promised your mother wouldn't interfere in our life?" "She doesn't interfere. You gave her my parents' gift 10 minutes after they left. Is that not interference?" Maximiliano fell silent. He stood with slumped shoulders, hopelessness in his eyes. He wanted to defend himself, but there were no words. He had done something ugly, and everyone knew it. The technician arrived exactly an hour later, a short man in overalls with a tool case. Octavio greeted him, led him to the kitchen, showed him the boxes. "Install everything. Dishwasher built-in, oven connected, microwave mounted. Can you handle it?" "No problem," the technician nodded. 2 hours, maybe less." "Excellent. Do it." He got to work. Rapping, tools clinking, quiet muttering. Maximiliano watched from the side, face dark. Isabella sat on the floor, leaning against the wall. Her mother sat next to her, put an arm around her shoulders. "Sweetheart, what happened?" Clementina whispered. "Tell me." Isabella told her, briefly, holding back tears, about the phone call, about the promise to give away the appliances to the mother-in-law. Clementina listened, her face changing, warmth turning to shock, then anger, then cold fury. "Has he lost his mind?" she said finally. "How could he do that?" "He wanted to help his mother," Isabella said tiredly. "That matters more to him." "And you? What are you to him?" "No one?" Isabella stayed silent. The answer was obvious. The technician worked fast. The dishwasher slid under the counter, the oven went into its niche, the microwave mounted on its shelf. Everything connected and tested. Everything worked perfectly. "Done," the technician announced, wiping his hands. "You can use everything now." Octavio paid him, walked him to the door, then came back to the kitchen and nodded to his daughter. "That's it. Now it is yours. Registered to you, installed, connected. Let someone try to take it now." Isabella walked to the dishwasher and ran her hand over the smooth surface. The hurt still churned inside her, but along with it came relief, gratitude, and a bitter understanding that life had just changed for good. "Thank you, Dad," she said quietly. "No need to thank me, honey." Her father hugged her. "The only thing that matters is that you are happy." But she did not feel happy, only tired, heavy inside. Maximiliano still stood off to the side. He looked at the appliances, at his father-in-law, at his wife. Confusion filled his eyes. He had no idea what had just happened. To him, it was a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. He only wanted to help his mother. There was nothing wrong with that. Why was everyone so angry? Isabella saw right through him now, saw who he really was, weak, tied to his mother, unable to make decisions on his own, ready to betray for her approval. And that truth was bitter, almost unbearable. That evening, her parents left. Clementina hugged her daughter for a long time, whispering comfort, promising it would all be all right. Octavio shook Maximiliano's hand, formally, without warmth, and looked him straight in the eye. "Take care of my daughter," he said. "Respect her. Otherwise you will regret it." Maximiliano nodded, unable to speak. When the door closed, silence filled the apartment. They were alone. Maximiliano approached Isabella, tried to hug her, but she pulled away. "Isa, please," he began. "Let's forget this. I won't do it again. I promise." "Forget?" she echoed. "You want me to forget that you betrayed me on the very first day in our new home?" "I didn't betray you. I just didn't think." "Exactly. You didn't think. Because the only person who matters to you is your mother, and I am just an accessory." "That's not true." "It is, Maximiliano. And you know it." She turned and went to the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub, and finally let go. Tears poured silently, bitter and endless. She cried for everything at once: the betrayal, the shattered illusions, the life she thought she was building that looked nothing like this. Outside, Maximiliano knocked, pleaded, promised. Isabella heard none of it. She sat in the bathroom, arms around her knees, understanding nothing would ever be the same. Not ever. The night passed in suffocating silence. Isabella did not leave the bathroom until she heard him get into bed. Quietly, she came out, took a blanket, and lay on the floor in the corner. She could not sleep beside him, could not even be near him. He tried to speak to her in the night, reached out a hand, whispered her name, but she did not answer. She lay still, pretending to sleep, though sleep would not come. Her thoughts spun relentlessly. How do you live after this? How do you look at him? How do you pretend nothing happened? In the morning, Maximiliano left early. She heard him moving around, rustling bags, muttering to himself. Then the door closed. Silence again. She went to the window and saw him head to the bus stop. He left without a goodbye. Or maybe he thought she was sleeping. Isabella went to the kitchen. The appliances stood in their places. The dishwasher gleamed, the oven sat snugly in its niche, the microwave looked like it had always belonged. She opened the dishwasher, inhaled the smell of new plastic and steel, ran her hand over the rack. She had dreamed of this so many times. Imagined loading dirty dishes and going about her evening while the machine worked. The dream had come true, only there was no joy. She boiled water for tea, took cookies from the bag her mother brought, sat at the table. Empty table in an empty apartment. The sunlight poured in, but inside her everything felt dark and cold. Her phone vibrated. A message from her mother. Sweetheart, how are you? Call us anytime. We worry. Isabella typed back, everything is fine. Thank you for everything. She pressed send and stared out the window again. Days passed. Maximiliano went to work, came home late. They barely talked. He tried to start conversations a few times, but she cut him off. Not now, I'm tired, I don't want to talk. He sulked, retreated to a corner, stared at his phone. Isabella knew he was texting his mother, complaining, seeking comfort. Esperanza was surely feeding it, saying his wife was ungrateful, spoiled by wealthy parents, didn't appreciate anything. Isabella kept setting up the apartment. Her father brought a fridge and washing machine at wholesale price. Her mother came with pans, bedding. They helped quietly, without questions. They could see the pain and did not pry. One evening, while Isabella cooked in the new oven, the doorbell rang. She opened it and froze. Esperanza stood there, a cake in her hands, a guilty smile on her face. Isabella, hello, she chirped, voice too sweet, too fake. May I come in? I was nearby and decided to stop by, to see how you are settling in. Isabella stepped aside silently. The mother-in-law entered, looked around. Her gaze slid over the new furniture, the appliances, and something hungry, calculating flashed in her eyes. Oh, how nice you have it, she exclaimed, setting the cake down. All settled already. And the appliances, so shiny, just like brand new. Must have cost a fortune? Yes, Isabella answered shortly. She stood with arms crossed, not pretending warmth. Is Maximiliano home? Esperanza asked. Her smile widened. I wanted to talk to him. He is at work. Oh, of course. She sat on the edge of the sofa, smoothed her skirt, hesitated a moment, then began in a more confidential tone. Isabella, I wanted to apologize for that situation. I meant no harm, truly. He offered, and I thought maybe you didn't need all that equipment right away. You know, just moved in, so many expenses ahead. And my oven really broke at the country house. I never wanted to upset anyone. Isabella said nothing. She looked at her mother-in-law and saw right through the staged guilt. Esperanza did not regret anything. She had come to try again, to push, to get what she wanted, only by another method now. Isabella, we are family, she continued, voice soft and pleading. There is no need to fight. I understand your father defended you, that is normal. But let us not hold grudges. I am, after all, future grandmother to your children. We need to keep good relations. Future grandchildren, Isabella repeated. Esperanza, you did not even ask how we are living. You did not ask whether we need help. You just want everything your way, and you expect us to pretend nothing happened. Oh, come now, darling, the mother-in-law lifted her hands. I am asking how you live. I came here on purpose. I brought a cake. I wanted to make peace. Isabella stepped closer, sat down across from her, and looked her straight in the eyes. Let's be honest, Esperanza. You did not come to make peace. You came to look at the appliances you failed to take. You wanted to make sure they are really here and working. And you hope Maximiliano will try again to convince me to give them to you. Esperanza paled. The smile vanished, replaced by something sharp and venomous. You think too highly of yourself, she hissed. Your parents spoiled you. You think everyone should bow to you. But Maximiliano is my son and he will always be on my side no matter what you do. Then why are you here? Isabella's voice was quiet and steady. If Maximiliano is on your side, why come to me with cake and apologies? Esperanza stood, her face flushed with indignation. I tried to be polite, she said, her voice trembling. I tried to repair the relationship, but you are too stubborn and proud. Fine. Live how you want. Just remember this. Maximiliano will always come back to me because I am his mother, and you are just a wife. Wives can be replaced. Mothers cannot. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Isabella watched her go. The door slammed. Silence filled the apartment again. Isabella sat on the couch, wrapped her arms around her knees. Inside, everything shook. Not from fear or hurt, but from fury. Cold, steady fury. Esperanza was right about one thing. Maximiliano would always choose her. He was weak, dependent, unable to say no to his mother, and life with him would be a constant battle for every decision, every penny, every step. She took her phone and texted her father, "Dad, can I come over? I need to talk." The reply came instantly, "Of course, honey, come. We are home." That evening Isabella sat in her parents' kitchen. Her father brewed strong tea, her mother sliced pie, and they listened without interrupting. Isabella told them everything, how Maximiliano acted like nothing happened, how his mother showed up, what she said, how hard it was to wake up each day knowing the man she spent 3 years with was not the person she thought. "Honey, you already know what to do," her father said quietly when she finished. "I won't pressure you. This is your life, your choice. Just remember, you do not have to endure or stay with someone who does not respect you." "Dad, I put 3 years into this marriage," Isabella rubbed her face. 3 years of saving together, planning how can I just walk away? And how can you stay? Her mother asked. If every day you will feel like second place? If every decision will be made not by you two, but by him and his mother? Isabella stayed silent. She knew they were right, but leaving was frightening. Admitting she made a mistake, tearing down what she built, starting over it hurt. "I am not saying file for divorce tomorrow," her father added. Seriously think about what your life will look like in 1 year, 5, 10, with this man, with his mother. And if you do not like that picture, don't be afraid to change it. Isabella returned home late. Maximiliano was already asleep. She quietly undressed, lay down on her side of the sofa, covered herself, and stared into the dark, thinking about life, the future, what matters, and what does not. Weeks passed. Isabella changed. Not cruel, not bitter, just protected. She no longer consulted Maximiliano on big purchases, opened a separate bank account where her parents' monetary gifts went, started a notebook to track every household expense, so she knew exactly who paid for what. Maximiliano noticed. He tried to ask why she was distant, why she no longer shared her plans. Isabella only said, "This is better." He did not push, because deep down he knew he was guilty. Knew it, but refused to admit it. Esperanza called him every day. Isabella heard their talks. The mother complained about her health, her loneliness, how her son forgot her. Maximiliano apologized, promised to visit, to bring money. And every time he hung up, he became gloomy and irritated. One day he asked Isabella to lend him $200. "My mom needs medicine," he muttered, not looking at her. "I haven't gotten paid yet, and she needs it urgently." "Your mother has a pension," Isabella replied calmly, "and savings. Let her use them." "Isa, please," he tried to take her hand. "She is my mother. And this is my money." Isabella pulled her hand away. "Which I earned." No. Maximiliano went pale with outrage. You're serious? You would deny a sick woman help? I would deny your mother, who has manipulated you your whole life, Isabella said evenly. She is not sick. She is healthier than most. She just likes to complain, so you keep running and fulfilling her wishes. You have no right to talk about my mother like that. I have every right, because it is true. He turned and left, slamming the door. Isabella stayed still, feeling something unexpected, relief. She had finally said what she thought. She did not hide, did not pretend, did not swallow her feelings. She spoke truth, and it felt freeing. A month later, Maximiliano visited his mother. He returned late, sour and angry. Isabella was cooking, and he stood beside her. Mom says you are a bad influence, he said. His voice carried accusation. She says you turned me against her. And you believe her? Isabella kept stirring the soup. Well, what else should I think? We used to be a normal family, and now you are always angry, closed off, refusing to help. Isabella turned off the stove, looked him in the eyes. Let's be honest, Maximiliano. What changed? Did I become angry? Or did I simply stop pretending I am happy with how things are? I stopped ignoring that you put your mother above me. I stopped keeping quiet when you made decisions about my belongings without asking. It was one mistake. One. You still can't get over it. It was not a mistake, Isabella said clearly. It revealed who you are. And I will not forget that. Ever. Maximiliano clenched his fists, helpless. There was nothing to argue. He had betrayed her, and he knew it. I don't want to live like this, he whispered, with constant tension and constant accusations. Then change your behavior, Isabella replied. Learn to say no to your mother. Learn to put our family first instead of her whims. Learn to respect me. I do respect you. No, Maximiliano, you do not. If you respected me, you wouldn't have called your mother and promised to give her the gift from my parents. You wouldn't have asked me for money for her knowing I was against it. And you wouldn't listen to her complaints about me and agree with them. Maximiliano stayed silent. He turned away, walked into the living room, and sat on the sofa. Isabella finished cooking dinner, set the table, and called her husband. They ate in silence, without looking at each other. 2 months later, Esperanza came again. This time without warning, she simply rang the doorbell, and when Isabella opened, she rushed inside with an offended expression. "Where's my son?" she demanded. "I need to speak with him." "He's at work," Isabella answered, not inviting her in. "Then I'll wait." Esperanza walked into the living room, sat down on the sofa, and crossed her arms. "I have a serious conversation to have with him." Isabella closed the door and went into the kitchen to boil water. She didn't offer tea, didn't try to fake hospitality. Esperanza sat there grumbling to herself, shooting irritated looks toward the kitchen. When Maximiliano returned from work, his mother attacked him at the doorway. "Maximiliano, finally! I've been waiting for an hour. Do you know what happened? Your wife refused to help me. I asked for only $200 for medicine and she said no. How dare she?" Maximiliano looked confused, glancing from Isabella to his mother. "Mom, but that's Isabella's money. She earns it, she decides how to spend it. How is it her money?" Esperanza threw up her hands. "You are a family, everything should be shared. Or does she think she is separate from you, thinks your mother is a stranger to her?" Isabella walked out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "Esperanza, I don't consider you a stranger. I simply do not think it is necessary to give you money when you have your own. You receive a pension, you have savings, you can afford your medicine. You just prefer to complain and demand your son support you. How dare you?" The mother-in-law jumped up. "I sacrificed my whole life for him, raised him alone, without a husband, gave him everything, and now he must help me." "He does help," Isabella replied calmly. "He calls you every day, visits, listens to your complaints. That does not mean he must support you financially. You have an apartment, a country house, and a pension. You are not in need, you are simply used to manipulating." Esperanza gasped with outrage, her face turning red, hands trembling. "Maximiliano." She turned to her son. "Do you hear what she is saying? Will you allow her to speak like that to your mother?" Maximiliano stood in the middle of the room, misery written all over his face. His eyes darted between his mother and his wife, not knowing what to say. Isabella looked at him and waited for him to choose, her or his mother, truth or convenient lies. Mom, he finally said, Isabella is right, you do have money. You told me yourself you're saving for renovations at the country house. Why do you need to borrow from us? Esperanza froze. Her eyes widened, her lips trembled. She stared at her son as if he had betrayed her, stabbed her in the back. You're on her side? She whispered. You choose her and not me? I choose the truth, Mom. Maximiliano lowered his eyes. I am sorry. The mother-in-law grabbed her purse, turned, and headed for the door. On the threshold she stopped and looked back. Her eyes blazed with such fury that Isabella instinctively stepped back. You will both regret this, she hissed. Both of you will regret treating me this way. The door slammed. Silence filled the apartment. Maximiliano stood in the middle of the room, shoulders slumped. He looked drained, broken. You did the right thing, Isabella said quietly. I don't know, he shook his head. She is my mother. It's hard for her alone. It isn't hard for her. She just enjoys complaining and manipulating. Maybe so, but she's still my mother. And I am your wife. Isabella stepped in front of him. Maximiliano, I don't want you to choose between us. I want you to be honest with yourself, with me, with her. Stop pretending everything is fine when it's not. Stop lying, stop manipulating, stop betraying. I didn't betray you. You did. The very first day in our new apartment, and I won't forget it, ever. Maximiliano lifted his eyes to hers. They held pain and guilt. So it's over between us? I don't know, Isabella answered honestly. That depends on you. If you learn to respect me, to put our family first, to tell your mother no when she crosses boundaries, maybe we can make it work. If not, there's no point continuing. She turned and walked to the kitchen. Maximiliano stayed standing, and Isabella felt his eyes on her back, but she did not turn around. She had said everything she needed to say. The choice was his. Half a year passed. Life settled into a rhythm. Maximiliano tried. Not always successfully. Sometimes he slipped, called his mother to complain about his wife, but then caught himself and tried to fix it. Esperanza called less often, truly offended this time. Isabella did not mind. It was peaceful without constant complaints and manipulation. The appliances her parents brought worked perfectly. The dishwasher cleaned plates every evening, the oven baked fragrant pies on weekends, the microwave warmed breakfasts. Every time Isabella used them, she remembered the day her father took the phone from Maximiliano and, in a cold voice, put the mother-in-law in her place. She remembered Esperanza's outraged shriek so loud it was audible without speakerphone. Isabella would smile bitterly, but with relief. She had learned something important. You cannot live with someone who does not respect you. You cannot build a family on lies and manipulation. You cannot close your eyes to betrayal and pretend nothing happened. You can forgive, you can give a second chance, but you cannot forget. Nor should you. Isabella found a new passion. She enrolled in interior design courses. She always loved arranging spaces, choosing furniture, matching colors. Now she decided to turn it into a career. She attended classes 3 times a week, did homework, made friends in the course. It distracted her from heavy thoughts and made her feel life was moving forward instead of standing still. At first, Maximiliano was skeptical. He said the courses were a waste of money, that there was no work in that field, that she should stay home and take care of the house. Isabella ignored him. She paid for the courses with money her parents transferred to her separate account, and Maximiliano had no right to object. One evening, while she was working on a bathroom design on her laptop, Maximiliano came up and looked over her shoulder. "Looks beautiful," he said. There was something new in his voice, respect. Isabella turned and looked at her husband. He stood with his hands in his pockets, a little embarrassed. "Thank you," she replied. "Listen, do you really want to do this? Professionally?" "Yes, I do." Maximiliano paused, then nodded. "Then go for it. Try. Maybe it will work out." Simple words, but to Isabella they meant a lot. For the first time, her husband supported something she wanted to do. He didn't try to dissuade her or criticize her. Maybe he really was changing. Slowly, painfully, but changing. Isabella's parents visited once a week. They brought groceries, helped with small repairs, and simply spent time with their daughter. Octavio never brought up the day he took the phone from Maximiliano. He didn't remind, didn't reproach, just stayed close. Clementina baked pies, shared news, hugged her daughter, and told her she was proud of her. One day Isabella sat in the kitchen with her father, drinking tea. Rain trickled down the window glass. "Dad, thank you," she suddenly said, "for stepping in that day. If not for you, I don't know how things would have turned out." Octavio shrugged. "I just protected you, as a father should. You didn't just protect me. You showed me that I have the right to stand up for myself, that I don't have to endure and stay silent." Her father looked at her carefully. "Daughter, you already knew that. I only pushed you a bit, reminded you that you are not alone." That was enough. They sat in silence for a while. Rain drummed harder on the windowsill. "How are things with Maximiliano?" her father asked. Isabella thought for a moment. "It varies. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's hard. He tries, but habits are strong. His mother still calls, pressures, demands attention. He tries to resist, but he doesn't always succeed." "And you? Are you managing?" "Yes. I don't close my eyes anymore. If something bothers me, I say it. If I need to say no, I say no. I learn to protect my boundaries." "That is right," her father nodded. "Just don't lose yourself. Not for your husband, not for anyone." Isabella smiled. Her father always knew how to say just what she needed to hear, short, clear, to the point. A year passed since the day they got the keys to the apartment. Isabella completed her design courses, received her certificate, found her first clients through acquaintances, and finished a few small projects. The work began to bring income, not much, but steady. She created a page on social media, posted photos of her work, collected reviews. Maximiliano was proud of her. He didn't always show it, but Isabella could feel it. He told colleagues about his designer wife, showed her projects on his phone. It was pleasant, but Isabella understood she wasn't doing this for him. She was doing it for herself, for her independence, for the sense that life was in her hands. Esperanza never got her dishwasher. What she did get was a daughter-in-law who no longer bent, who had learned to say no, who wasn't afraid to guard her boundaries and protect what mattered to her. Isabella stood in the kitchen, loading dirty dishes into the dishwasher. She pressed the button and the machine hummed quietly as the wash cycle began. She looked at the appliance she had nearly lost on the very first day and thought about how much had changed in that year, how much she had learned. She learned not to fear conflict, not to stay silent when something was wrong, not to tolerate for the sake of false peace, not to sacrifice herself for other people's expectations. She learned to be strong, and that was worth more than any appliance, any gift, any promise. Maximiliano walked into the kitchen and hugged her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Life," Isabella replied. "About how everything has changed." "For the better?" She paused, then nodded. "Yes, for the better." Maximiliano kissed the top of her head and walked out. Isabella stayed at the window. Outside, evening lights flicked on in the neighboring buildings. Somewhere people were having dinner, watching TV, arguing, making up, making plans, ordinary life, full of small joys and difficulties. Isabella no longer dreamed of a fairy tale, no longer expected everything to be perfect. She knew life with Maximiliano would not be easy. There would be arguments, misunderstandings, moments she would want to walk away. But she also knew she could handle it, because she had learned to protect herself, learned not to give up, learned to be herself. The dishwasher finished its cycle and beeped softly. Isabella opened the door and took out the clean dishes. Plates gleamed, drops of water sliding down their edges. She put everything neatly in its place and wiped her hands with a towel. Life kept moving. Not the life she imagined 3 years ago when she dreamed of her own apartment and a happy family, but real life, honest life, and that mattered most. She turned off the kitchen light and went into the living room. Maximiliano sat on the sofa scrolling his phone. She sat next to him and picked up the book she had started a week ago. They sat silently, each absorbed in their own world. Together, but not really together. And Isabella understood that was how it would be. They would stay together, but on her terms, without manipulation, without betrayal, without closing their eyes to truth. And Esperanza was left with broken expectations and an old oven in her country house. She called Maximiliano occasionally, complained about life, tried to provoke sympathy. But Maximiliano had learned to say no. Not always, not immediately, but he had learned. And Isabella knew that was her victory. Small, quiet, but important. She looked at her husband. He lifted his eyes, met her gaze, and smiled awkwardly. Isabella smiled back, not broadly, not joyfully, but sincerely. Life went on, and that was good.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.